You know, what we're doing here this morning is kind of crazy. We're all just a little bit nuts. How's that for a homily opener on Easter Sunday, huh? The pastor calling us crazy. Well, I say that because it's crazy that we are proclaiming a dead man to be alive. We're bold enough, crazy enough to believe that the light of this man, which we see atop this newly blessed Paschal candle, this man, Jesus Christ, can actually dispel the darkness of this world. We know that Jesus walked this earth. There are historical records of that. Even the strongest atheist or agnostic would acknowledge the existence of Jesus Christ. We know he was crucified and buried. Yet 2,000 years later, we proclaim with confidence, he is risen. There have always been attempts to explain this away. Some say he really didn't die. This is the so-called swoon theory, where they took his body down from the cross before he died. Others claim that the disciples stole his body. Still others suggest grief-stricken hallucinations, that the disciples were just seeing things. Or the other one is that the women simply went to the wrong tomb. Kind of crazy, huh? But all of these theories fall apart under scrutiny. Mass hallucinations are not supported by any sort of science. If the wrong tomb had been found, the Romans and the Jewish officials would have just presented Jesus' body and said, see, here he is. Be done with this. He's still dead. And furthermore, no one survives crucifixion, especially when their heart had been pierced with a lance. But for my money, I think the most compelling argument for the resurrection, the most compelling witness, are the apostles themselves. These men who fled in fear on Good Friday, when Jesus was arrested and then crucified, became bold proclaimers of the resurrection. All of them, except John, who lived to an old age, all of them were martyred. They all died. And people may die for something they believe is true, but no one dies for something they know is a lie. Who would endure imprisonment, torture, and death, proclaiming Christ is risen, if it weren't true? Who would continue preaching from a jail cell or accept crucifixion and beheading like Peter and Paul did for a fabrication? Not only the apostles, but countless holy men and women throughout the ages, whose praises we sing in the Litany of the Saints, have shed their blood for the truth of the resurrection. No one would do that if it were a lie. Now, we can talk about all the proofs and we can have the logical arguments, but the deeper question is, what then does that mean for us? What does it matter? Well, the resurrection is the bedrock of our faith. Without it, nothing makes sense. Without the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus, our lives ultimately would have no meaning. But because Christ is risen, everything changes. We now very clearly see that God has been faithful to the covenant that he made with us since the very beginning of creation. He has not abandoned us. He has not left us orphans. And even in the times that we have failed to keep up our end of the covenant, he remained faithful. Our life here on earth now has an eternal destiny, because as was proclaimed last night in the Exalted, Christ broke the prison bars of death and rose from the underworld. The one who for our sake paid Adam's debt to the eternal Father, and pouring out his own dear blood, wiped clean the record of our ancient sinfulness. Folks, isn't this amazing? Can we just sit back for a moment and just take all of this in, realizing how phenomenal the resurrection is? To bask in what it means for our life, our existence. God, through Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, did exactly what he said he was going to do from the beginning. He remained faithful. He has redeemed us, and he's given our lives meaning. So how is it then that we, with this newfound life within us every Easter, how do we proclaim Christ crucified and risen? The women in the gospel are told to return to Galilee. It's there that they'll see Jesus and the brothers. In other words, go back to the beginning. Go back to where this all started. But don't go back the same. Their encounter with the risen Christ has changed everything. And so it is for us. Today, we will leave this church and return to our own Galilees, our homes, our workplaces, our daily routines. But if we have truly encountered the risen Christ here, we cannot remain the same. To truly believe that Jesus died and rose from the dead, it changes us in a deep and a permanent way. Last night, we welcomed two people into full communion with the Catholic Church, Alec and Alexandria. And I would imagine this truth of the resurrection and their belief in it, that's why they were here. That's why they said yes. If this were a hoax or some lie, they or any other convert this year to the church would not be here. But they, by saying yes to the church, stand as witnesses to us and to our parish family to the truth and the power of the resurrection. They and all received into the church around the world stand in contrast to the lies of the world and every theory that attempts to disprove the resurrection. And if we wonder if our church is alive or not, this year is the highest number of converts to Catholicism in the world. The highest number ever. So my friends, let us on this holy morning take leave of the empty tomb without fear. Let us return to our own Galilees changed and transformed. May we never fear to proclaim boldly and without reservation to everyone we meet and in every place that we go that he is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia.